me go back for a moment to the introductory question, what gave me this idea? One of the events during my professional life which expanded my history teacher's insights, mentioned in the first segment of this presentation, has been to read Alain's works. As mentioned earlier, Alain, a French philosopher from 1868 to 1951, author of thousands of propos or proposals in a short essay format, he volunteered at age 46 to go to the front in World War I, despite his declared pacifism. But mainly, he was a teacher. He told his students to always go from the simple to the complex as a more effective path toward learning with understanding, as opposed to learning at an increasing pace or intensity. He also recommended that the lower levels are the support for the higher ones, but we need the higher levels to understand the lower ones. And here is another pertinent quote in response to many statements about the need to climb on shoulders of giants. He said, "I was busy enough attempting to rediscover what the best minds wanted to say. Every successful attempt at this is a discovery in the deepest sense, since it is the continuation of mankind." This last quote in particular is about the knowledge we inherit from our ancestors. But while others talk about the higher authority of our ancestors, with its implication of hierarchy and respect, Alain seems to take at heart the roots and developments of man's intellect. In other words, he says, look backwards, aim at a better understanding of what happens now and what needs to be planned for the future. So the more I read Alain's works, the more I got convinced that Alain was one of those who lived with humanity as the practical starting point. That is to say, humanity instead of nation or community or family. His reference was thus a much earlier starting point in time than what his contemporaries had chosen, thanks to their different worldview. The absence, however, of an agreed-upon earliest conceivable common starting point, again accepted by all, including those broadcasting various political propositions, and let me remind you, these were the years preceding World War II. The disconnect provided an open door for the ones in favor of war to get stronger. Alain's basic insights got my attention. It further inspired me to search for hidden layers, the deepest roots. How do seeds originate? Down to ensembles of subatomic structures and all primal interactions, some of which have been the forgotten components in our accepted theories and worldviews. Since I am on the subject of what contributed to my thinking, here is another one. A physicist of my acquaintance asked, and this was in 2005, what if the non-material primal interactions that you suggest in your essay, yes, there was a much earlier version of the essay, are the result of the self-organized ensemble, for instance, in a cell? That would sound more credible to all scientists. We would actually welcome such a proposal as a useful addition to current thinking in both theoretical and experimental physics research. But I argued, at the lowest levels of complexity, we haven't demonstrated how and when the auto-organization intrinsic capability gets into action, so to speak. It has only been observed above a certain level of complexity. That's one precise requirement for upfront multidisciplinary philosophy, religions, science studies. To consider, plan, address critical questions. The drive to life, the origins of the law of evolution by natural selection, the infinite variety of physical forms, the relative constancy of non-materiality while cells divide and regenerate, the material-non-material interdependent dynamics, and more. Yes, it is a tall order. Each worldview has embedded in its origins and as part of its development a different version of our common story, with convenient starting points and assumptions along the same timeline. To teach that we are all brothers or recommend that we are all born somewhat connected, to pray or sing together, all that is valuable and right, but up to a point. Is it not about time we aim at a higher point? My essay is neither an anthology of what great thinkers in philosophy, religions, science of the past have given us, nor a presentation of a new worldview, let alone a unifying theory with empirical results. It is not about digging into the past. What I have arrived at is hopefully an invitation to rediscover our assumptions, not in order to change them, but to supplement them and thus be readier to tackle what lies ahead. If we are interested in making together a coordinated, multidisciplinary attempt at achieving a better understanding of what underlies human thought and behavior. And I would like to repeat here, what I mean is working in a team so as to determine a series of actions we would describe as an addendum or an appendix to all worldviews, to all peace initiatives, to all plans for a better world. Indeed, the long-term implications could include high benefits in terms of social life, justice, health, education, and more. This is not about a perfect world, but a world better than what too many of us see today. Let me share with you a story, and then we will conclude. I titled it Homo sapiens Revisited Migration. As a result of slightly different cosmic events, westbound migration from Central Asia between 150,000 and 50,000 years before our era got directed more toward ancient Nubia as opposed to Europe, and thus flourished there instead of ancient Greece, Rome, and Scandinavia. So in this revisited migration story, Nubia is where the dawn of civilization actually took place, which in turn triggered polytheism to monotheism transformation, along many other societal cultural changes, and was then followed by their own enlightenment period, probably with some differences compared to what we know about, as well as by the colonization of Europe. Yes, the colonization of Europe by Nubia. This is a slightly different story. The roles are reversed, but more or less the same people are involved. This imaginary but possible series of events may be worth including in history classes from elementary through high school. In my view, it might encourage the study of history with a critical, open mind and an emphasis on why moral judgments ought to be made more carefully. And B, foster humility in a more effective way than being told that humility is a virtue. Please think about it. For our ancestors, my parents and their extended families, for teachers and authors and dearest friends who, complimenting or challenging my ideas, encourage me to search deeper and wiser. This book is for them. They led me to see what might become a safe walkway across the divides.